Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to this meeting of North Sydney Council. A special welcome to those of us joining us in the public gallery, to the councillors joining us both here in the chamber and online, and to those who have joined us via the webcast. Before we begin, I'll call on Councillor Hoy to give the acknowledgement of country.
On behalf of all present and those watching on webcast, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands in which we meet and to pay our respects to their ancestors and spirits past and present.
Thank you. 3 councillors have sought to attend remotely this evening: Councillor Carr, Councillor Santa and Councillor Spenceley. Is there a procedural motion? Councillor Beregi.
Madam Mayor, I move that Councillor Carr, Santa and Spenceley be permitted to attend remotely for the reason of travel.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Holding. All those in favour? And that is carried. Welcome to those councillors joining us remotely. Are there any disclosures of interest for items on the agenda? No. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent for your image and voice to being webcast. It's a reminder that under Council's Code of Meeting Practice, councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of the council, and councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media activity must leave the chamber to do so. And that brings us to confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of September. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Welsh, seconded by Councillor Antonini. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried. Councillors, we've had a number of people seek to address council on a number of items. Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we bring forward the following items: 8.1, 10.1, 11.1, 11.2 and 11.3, and open the public forum so that we may hear from the speakers before debate.
Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Keane. I put that procedural motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. So that does then bring us to the first of those brought forward items, Mayoral Minute 1. There is one registered speaker, Mr. Paul Jones. If you would please come forward.
My name is Paul Jones. Evening councillors. I'm here tonight to discuss the street lights of North Sydney Council area. I'm advocating for the change from the current harsh cool white lights to a nicer warm white. It's been stated by the council that Ausgrid have advised that the current bright LED cool white lights, A, provide high visibility and contrast, which can improve safety and surveillance, particularly on the roads. My response to that is, for what? Driving, avoiding car crashes. Many car crashes occur in broad daylight due to people speeding, inattention and intoxication. Bright lights at night, that's why people come back in car crashes. Safer for walking around at night. How would cool white lights make it safer to walk around than warm white? There's been a few stabbings in Sydney around the area these days in broad daylight. Bright lights at night don't stop bad from committing crimes. B, have greater energy efficiency as they typically are more efficient and brighter per watt. I'm not advocating to not use cost-saving LED lights. Just don't use cool white, as LED lights come in different spectrums from 2,300 kelvins to 9,000 kelvins. The AMA have recommended to not use higher Kelvin rate than 3,000 kelvins, which is where warm white starts at. As per the AMA, the American Medical Association, warm white shoe lights are better than cool white for the below reasons. 1, they're less disruptive to human sleep patterns, which is crucial for health for the locals. 2, they create less glare, which is safe for driving around at night. 3, better for nocturnal wildlife and less impact on the environment. 4, they create a much more pleasing ambience at night. 5, the warmer white creates less glow for light pollution. Now, the cost to change the lights I've estimated to be approximately about $500,000, because I think last financial year we paid, I think, $566,000 to change, I think, 1,084 lights from mercury vapor to LED. Technically, there should be no logical reason to not change to warm white based off the below reasons. There's growing support from locals, as per my petition and social media, that shows the growing amount of ratepayers are wanting warm white for streetlights. 2, other councils around the world, including Hamilton City Council in New Zealand, are a good example where they're using nicer warm white LED streetlights instead of the current harsh cool white lights. I must also add that Sydney Council, who are currently upgrading the lighting in Hyde Park, are going for using a nice warm white for LED lights. 3, the AMA have stated for multiple reasons, as previously mentioned, why warm white is better and healthier than cool white. 4, the cost is not that expensive, about $500,000. 5, warm streetlights do not make streetlights less safe to walk or drive in. And number 6, finally, still using LED, which is long-term cost saving. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Keane?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Jones. You did mention a petition in your speaking notes. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was that online? Was it hard copy? What was it?
It's change.org, so it's online.
Yeah.
And I concentrate in the local area of North Sydney area. So,
Great.
Yeah.
And all favourable, the results?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Overall, yes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your
Cheers. Thank you.
participation. So councillors, that now brings us to the mayoral minute. You will have read that I said recently a resident contacted me. Well, you've now met the resident, Mr. Jones, to raise this issue of conversion from the cool blue white light to a warm white. I won't repeat the matters that Mr. Jones addressed you about. Ausgrid have set out a series of reasons as to why they have cool white light. But the opposing view is that the harsher light causes discomfort or glare. It disrupts circadian rhythms and can be more disruptive to wildlife, contributes more to light pollution. Council's current operational plan adopted on the 30th of June does not budget to undertake changing LEDs to warmer white lights. But what I will say is that Mr. Jones has been in correspondence with Council for some time, and Council's Director of Open Space and Infrastructure has put to Transport for New South Wales that on the completion of their projects that they ought to be adopting a warmer white light. And he was pleased to advise me this evening that Transport for New South Wales have said that they will commit to warm white lights in the Sydney Harbour Bridge cycleway when it's completed later this year. So what I'm proposing is that we consider the use of warm LED luminaries in future lighting replacement programs across council-owned properties and when future replacement of street lighting is proposed, and that we explore grant funding from the New South Wales Government to undertake a program to install warm LED street lighting in place of the existing cool street lighting. Are there any speakers? Councillor
Welsh. Thank you, Mr. Jones. That was an excellent speech, and I am more than happy to support the mayoral minute. Thank you very much for bringing this to council.
Any others? If not, I'll put the item. All those in favour? And those against? And that is carried unanimously. That now brings us to the next brought forward item, which is 10.1, financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2025. The speaker is Karen Taylor, the Director of Financial Audit at the Audit Office of New South Wales.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, council executive. Thank you for the invitation to present the report on the conduct of North Sydney Council audit. Tonight, I'll take you through the results of the 2025 financial statement audit, As you can see on the agenda, I also cover the Auditor General's annual work program, the focus areas for the local government report to Parliament on financial audits for local government, the report on the conduct for your actual audit, cash equivalents and investments, and infrastructure, property, plant, equipment, and questions to close. So the annual work program has some key audit themes, which is on this slide, that the Auditor General is particularly focused on: efficiency and optimal use of public resources, grants administration, major capital projects, climate-related risks and opportunities, and First Nations communities. So the performance audits that are conducted are to assess whether activities of government entities are carried out effectively, economically, efficiently, and in compliance with the laws and regulations. So that annual work program that highlighted the areas, the performance audits, is the 2025 to 2028 program, and that was released by the Auditor General in August 2025. And there's a 3-year rolling plan that gets updated annually, and anyone can subscribe to the website and get updates sent automatically. So for the financial audits, we focus on the financial reporting, obviously the financial statements and how the performance and cash flows of council. Financial sustainability, we're starting to identify some warning signs and council liquidity and other areas which we're reporting to Parliament on an overall sector basis. And then the internal controls and governance on a sector basis, comparing regional, rural and city metro councils. So these just has some of the performance audit topics that are planned coming up: long-term financial planning, major capital projects, climate risk and adaptation, waste management, and audit and risk committee effectiveness, and performance management and monitoring, which is the IPNR compliance. They usually pick about 3 councils, one from city metro, one from regional and one from rural, to get a cross section of those topic areas. So this is back to the financial audit report to Parliament focus areas. I'm making you move all the time, aren't I? I didn't make these slides, this was communications. So I think I already covered most of these, but probably the one that I didn't say is we also do some work on the IT systems, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence as a new topic area for local government to report in this year's report to Parliament, which should be tabled around February. And we're also looking at some major projects over $30 million to see budget to actual and timeliness of those projects and any other, and the amount of variations in those projects. So now I'll turn to the report on the conduct of the audit. So we have the income statement up here from your financial statements. And so it's showing that rates and annual charges. Oh, sorry, before I go into that. So we have completed our audit of the general purpose financial statements for 24-25, and I'm pleased to report today that when I receive the signed financial statements, I'll be able to issue a clean audit opinion for council's financial statements, which means that the financial statements contain no material misstatements and present fairly. The Office of Local Government Code sets out what we need to cover in the report on the conduct of the audit, which we're doing today. So this is back to the income statement. So your rates and annual charges revenue increased by 4.2 million to 79.8 million. This is mainly due to the 5% increase in the rates revenue as determined by IPART. Grants and contributions revenue decreased by 3.4 million. This balance fluctuates year on year, depending on the timing of revenue recognition and the level of development. Your operating result from continued operations was positive $15.2 million. This was 2.1 million higher than last year, much of this increase was due to expenditure cuts, along with a $2.9 million increase in revenue. So after we take out the capital grants and contributions, you still had a net result of $1.3 million, which is a $4.9 million improvement on the prior year. It does show that without the capital grants and contributions, council is still making an operating profit for 24-25, which is different from what it was in 23-24. So the next slide is showing the operating result. As you can see, this is the last 3 years operating result. It had a quite a big dip last year, and it's starting to recover, but the overall line is declining. Okay, so I think I said all this. So the result is driven by higher income, lower expenses, higher depreciation, and lower grants and contributions funding. So the next slide. So this slide is showing the grants and contributions. So the light area is the capital grants and contributions, which you can see is probably declining the most, and that is linked to development, but also capital grants coming from funding bodies. And then the operating grants and contributions has also declined at a slightly smaller rate. That can be influenced by the timing of the financial assistance grants provided by the Commonwealth Government. They pay some in advance each year, and that timing has moved year on year. With grants as well, the accounting standards versus how much cash you get in grants is different. So it doesn't necessarily align to what cash you get for grants and contributions. The financial statements have to reflect what the accounting standards recognition is. Some of the cash you get is deferred to later revenue reporting periods. Okay, so next is your cash and investments balance. So looking at the cash position, council has $141.4 million in cash at 30 June 2025, or had. So that's a increase from 126.8 million in the prior year. So this year, 102.5 million is externally restricted, which means it's for a specific purpose, either under legislation or a third-party contract, or a developer contribution, or a loan for a specific purpose. So that has increased. So a high percentage, 72% of your available cash is externally restricted. And then you have internal allocations, which are up to council's policies and decisions, and that's a further 21%. So after that, it's probably about 6% is totally unrestricted cash. So this graph we reported for the first time in the Auditor General's report to Parliament last year is a calculation of council liquidity. We only reported the 18 councils who had less than 2 months worth of available cash to meet expenses, but this year we're reporting it in the report on the conduct, and then a bit more analysis in the Auditor General's report. So this is taking out your externally restricted cash and just saying how much available cash at the 30th of June each year did you have to cover expenses, expenses not including depreciation, not including finance costs, interest. So this is showing that you have 4.4 months at the 30th of June, so that's historical, 4.4 months of available cash to cover your expenses, so to meet your short-term obligations. It has declined, as you can see in the graph, and just we're trying to have a benchmark. So the Metro councils at the 30th of June 2024, because we don't have all the results for this year yet, the average was 8 months. So you can see that I know from all your plans and your other documents that you obviously want to reverse that to go up a bit the other way, but that's what it's showing as at the 30th of June. Okay, so then you've got your infrastructure, property, plant and equipment. Obviously your CapEx program has to be well controlled because you don't have a lot of cash laying around to spend frivolously. So your capital work in progress is quite high. The pool is included in that, the spending for this year. So plus some other assets that you acquired. Work in progress, so it means it's not in use yet. So it sits in work in progress until the asset's ready for use, and then it will move into your property, plant and equipment balance. The other highest spending area was on roads, bridges, footpaths and other road assets. So I'd also like to thank the finance team for the cooperation during the conduct of the audit and keeping the audit efficient and effective process. Meet this timetable. And any questions?
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of Ms Taylor?
This one.
Yes, Councillor Carr.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that report. That was great. At the beginning of the report, you mentioned something about financial sustainability measures. Does that mean that the office is doing a review of councils in general on financial sustainability and reporting it? And if so, yeah.
So that graph I showed today's presentation, that council liquidity graph, that's one of the financial sustainability measures that the audit office is using to highlight any red flags for some councils that are definitely in the less than 2 months of available cash. Some are down to like 0.5 months of available cash. It's a bit hard to pay your wages, but yeah, we're not developing the ratios of performance measures for councils. That will be Office of Local Government's responsibility. We just want to make our reports to Parliament give the information to highlight any red flags that they should be aware of, but we're still developing those.
Okay, thank you.
If you could mute yourself, that would be great. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for your attendance and presentation.
Thanks, everybody.
So is there a mover? Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Holding. Do you wish to speak?
I will
to the
briefly, first of all, thank you for the presentation and for all your efforts during the last year at ARIC meetings and beyond. This is, again, just a reminder of the sobering financial position this council is in. To think that we can only cover ourselves for 4 months, if it would defy belief if we could get out of a crisis that if a council came across one. Of real concern is that any good news, i.e. surpluses, are largely due to one-off income items. This is and savings measures, and we all know that those savings measures include withholding staff positions to ensure that we have liquidity to meet our obligations. Concerningly, the infrastructure asset backlog is increasing. It's now 157 million required to bring the assets to an agreed service level, and it's very clear that business as usual is not going to cut it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? And that is carried. That brings us to the next brought forward item, Notice of Motion 22 of 2025, Councillor Walsh, Western Harbour Tunnel High Capacity Public Bus Service. There is one registered speaker, Mr. John Berry. If you would please come forward and address council.
My name is John Berry. I'm a resident of Cammeray. I would like to thank the council for its sustained efforts to see justice for the residents of North Sydney LGA in regards to the juggernaut, which is the Warringah Freeway expansion and the Western Harbour Tunnel projects. During the early stages of construction, the previous mayor described it as all pain and no gain, and nothing has changed after several years. How do we know that the North Sydney LGA is in for a traffic disaster? Because the EIS for the project tells us by identifying several major intersections which it states will fail or become overloaded due to increased traffic. 3 former senior transport bureaucrats testified at the parliamentary inquiry into WestConnex that there was a high risk that the Western Harbour Tunnel would kick the traffic congestion caused by the Rozelle interchange up the road onto the Warringah Freeway and the lower North Shore. We need a circuit breaker for the predicted traffic chaos, and a new and quite revolutionary transport route can be part of the answer. Under the harbour via the Western Harbour Tunnel, bypassing the heavily congested freeway, Harbour Bridge and CBD. The residents of the North Sydney LGA have sacrificed so much for the Western Harbour Tunnel, and to be frank, have been betrayed by Transport for New South Wales and the state government. To be fair, the current government inherited the mess. We have permanently lost 10 hectares of vegetated space. We have lost 3,000 trees, and there is doubt as to whether the government will honour the 2-for-1 tree promise because so much green space has been lost. None of the trees planted will reach maturity in my lifetime. We have been betrayed by the promise to return lost open space within the vicinity of the project. This commitment was made by the state government with the full knowledge that it would be impossible to achieve. We will be lumbered with increased traffic congestion and an unfiltered emissions stack. The state government owes us big time, and a new major bus route improving public transport connectivity between north, south and west could go some way to compensate the community and addressing the anticipated congestion problems. Transport for New South Wales has consistently dangled the carrot of public transport integration into the Western Harbour Tunnel before our eyes since the inception of the plan, and yet it's not happening. For example, this document, Western Harbour Tunnel Project Update 2018, explicitly shows public buses in the tunnel. And it states, the Western Harbour Tunnel will provide road capacity and connectivity for express bus routes between key centres, with all proposed links compatible with Sydney's bus fleet, including double-deck buses. The project creates the potential to introduce direct express bus access between the inner west and lower North Shore. This creates the opportunity to introduce new express services to key employment and education centres, directly linking North Sydney and beyond to the Bays Precinct, the University of Sydney and the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital.
That's your 3 minutes if you could sum up.
Yes. Finally, for their troubles, the residents of the inner west were blessed with a new beautiful park, Roselands Parklands, which coincidentally is 10 hectares. And we forfeited 10 hectares for the Western Harbour Tunnel. It's now time for our compensation.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? No. Thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
your participation. Councillor Welsh, your motion, you move it.
Thank you, and I have a motion. I have a motion which I have forwarded to, okay. That council write to the City of Sydney Council and the Inner West Council urging the formation of a working group to urgently write to the following ministers: Transport Minister John Graham, Roads Minister Jenny Atkinson, Environment Minister Penny Sharp, Planning Minister Paul Scully, Housing Minister Rose Jackson, and Treasurer Daniel Mookie to strongly advocate for the integration of a high-capacity public bus service between the lower North Shore and the Inner West and beyond into the Western Harbour Tunnel.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Berkey. Councillor Welsh, it's yours to speak to.
Thank you. The Western Harbour Tunnel, due to open in 2028, presents a unique and timely opportunity to transform public transport connectivity between the lower North Shore, the inner West, and beyond. Working together with other effective councils will make our voices louder. Writing to Transport and Roads Ministers because it is a transport proposal. Writing to the Housing Minister and Planning Minister because the proposal supports the state government's TOD program, which requires improved public transport for increased population. Writing to the Environment Minister because reduced private vehicle use and increased public transport helps New South Wales meet its zero net emissions target. Writing to the Finance Minister because funding will be required to implement the project. By integrating high-capacity public bus services into the tunnel with dedicated bus lanes and connections to existing and future public transport infrastructure, we can significantly reduce congestion, improve travel times, and encourage more people to leave their cars at home. This proposal outlines the clear benefits of doing so, including potential passenger numbers and a strategic integration plan for bus services through the Western Harbour Tunnel. Council has previously lobbied the state government on this issue, and it's important that we continue to advocate strongly. Integrating buses into the tunnel would reduce the number of private vehicles on our roads, improve traffic flows, and lessen the impact of congestion on our local communities. It really would be madness to build such a significant piece of transport infrastructure without public transport integration. Importantly, this proposal would also greatly improve access for North Shore residents to key destinations as was outlined by Mr. Barry, such as the University of Sydney, UTS, the University of Notre Dame, Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, and major employment hubs across the inner West and CBD. I am saddened that the previous New South Wales government did not incorporate better walking and cycling outcomes into the project. And I'd like to extend my thanks to Mr. Barry for forwarding the background information and to the Combined Precincts Infrastructure Subcommittee for the excellent work they have done in putting together this comprehensive and thoughtful proposal. Thank you very much. I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Could you put your microphone off?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sadly, I can't support this motion. I would have liked to have been able to support the motion, and in principle, Mr. Berry, I would like to. However, we have two Labor councillors sitting around this table and writing letters when you are an elected Labor councillor. These are your colleagues. These are your state ministers. I would expect Councillor Welsh and Councillor Santa that you could knock on the door, not write letters. Our council deserves better than that. We want to actually open doors, meeting one-on-one with these ministers and explaining the situation. So therefore, I cannot support this.
Council, any other speakers? Councillor Barragy.
Mayor, I'm happy to support the motion. It is an absolute affront that, as Mr. Berry showed us, we had public transport on the front of the EIS. Talk about misleading, but that's what the project's been. I'm happy to support this, and Councillor Keane, you are a member of the Liberal Party, and it is your government that actually has initiated this poor project. And I don't remember ever seeing you or any of your Liberal councillors ever get any meetings with anybody from the state government. That's why we ended up with the disaster of the Western Harbour Tunnel and Warringah Freeway downgrade. I absolutely agree.
Point of order there. You have got no proof that I've never met with a minister.
I didn't say you didn't get
No,
one to
you
come to
didn't.
council.
No, not to come to council. What I'm saying is to open the
I'm going to rule
door.
on the point of order.
Thank you.
I'd ask that you withdraw and apologise.
Yep, withdraw and apologise. It is still a Liberal Party project that we are having to deal with, like the pool. I agree, Councillor Welsh, we desperately need something to happen. And I can't ignore the irony that Mr. Berry raised, which is that Rozelle have exactly the amount of public open space given to them that we have lost.
Councillor Hoy.
Thank you very much for bringing this motion. I will be supporting it. I think it's a really well thought out proposal. And I think that anything we can do to be encouraging more public transport use to get across the city, to get to places that people want to go and come back, we couldn't you couldn't ask for anything better from, proper planning. I particularly thank you for bringing it to the council for a democratic decision of the council for advocacy priorities, rather than it being a backroom internal party decision.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Are there any other speakers? Before I give you,
Councillor Santa.
Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to address the claim by my colleague, Councillor Keane, that the two Labor councillors, I'm paraphrasing her, the two Labor councillors should be meeting with these ministers rather than writing letters. I'd like to point out, first of all, we do meet these ministers regularly. And secondly, this is a staged process. Forming a working group and writing to the ministers doesn't end the process. We certainly do intend to meet, and this is a good way of getting that meeting process started and formalising it so that we can achieve the result that that we're all looking for in this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give you the right reply, I'm going to speak briefly. So first I'm going to speak on that point, which is ridiculous and in fact probably unlawful, that two councillors should be expected to go off and they cannot represent this council and this governing body without a resolution. And when that happens, the person to go is the mayor and the CEO. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And if we're going to talk about Liberal Party access to power, we certainly didn't see that when the gestation of this dreadful and unplanned and absolutely pointless major road projects that we're faced with today. So that to me is a straw man argument. It's the role of this council as a governing body to decide what it is that we seek to advocate to the state government. I thank Councillor Welsh and I particularly thank Mr Berry and the CPC for their tireless and continuing work on this project. I, for one, was a councillor on that council when this was first put forward. And I do strongly recall the bus on the front page of the EIS. And in fact, it has always been this council's resolved position that there ought to be integrated public transport into this project. That advocacy happened in the previous iterations of this council, those that were led by my predecessor. That was part of our submission to the government at the time. And it remains so today. So I think it is time to push yet again with a new government in place. And certainly it is time that not just the people of North Sydney, but the people of the inner west be compensated for the impacts of these toll roads on our communities. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion. Do you wish to exercise a right of reply?
Just to reiterate again that it really is crazy not to have public transport in this very major project. Thank you very much.
I put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? Councillors Carr and Keane. That is carried. That brings us to the next brought forward motion item, and that is the next motion, 11.2, Spofford Street and Ranges Road. There are 4 registered speakers. The first is Catherine Clark on behalf of Harrison Bennett Precinct. If you would please come forward. But I've only got 3.
Thank you for the opportunity to address council again about traffic safety matters on Spofford Street and its feeder roads. My name is Catherine Clark. I'll just make that clear because Kathy Peters is here. And I'm a co-convener from Harrison Bennett Precinct. You will have all received an email from the precinct about the motion before you. And it includes an amendment to the motion, which asks for a report to be provided to council within 3 months outlining options and actionable solutions. This is because the precinct is keen to see this progress in this matter, which has been ongoing for a number of years. Now, in respect of motion 1 about acknowledging the long-standing concerns of residents, some of you will be aware that council has already acknowledged that there are traffic concerns on Spofford Street and its feeder roads. Indeed, at its meeting in December 2018, it resolved unanimously to note the response by Mosman Council and express extreme disappointment towards that council's lack of action and cooperation on critical traffic matters at the intersection of Spofford Street and Ranges Road. The second motion refers to plans that have already been prepared by council in response to the issues raised. And those plans include the items in the LATM. But I should add that the same traffic issues persist and indeed are getting worse. For instance, unfortunately, the traffic safety enhancement installed in Holt Avenue has not resulted in any significant improvement to safety. And as predicted, traffic using Spofford Street, using Spencer Road to cross Spofford Street has increased. And as predicted, there has been increase my apologies, the expected near misses of both pedestrians and vehicles. And some of the speakers will talk about that. Congestion will worsen as new low to rise housing developments increase in the area. And furthermore, more residents are using technology to seek out less crowded routes instead of sticking to main roads. This means that lower order streets or neighbouring streets of similar order in a network are overloaded and they were not designed to handle volumes of traffic. This is unacceptable, but this is what is happening in our area and I no doubt in all areas of the council. In respect of motion 3, appropriate safety measures could include revisiting the work previously undertaken in respect of Spofford Street and Ranges Road. This site will become more of an issue when the 60-place childcare centre is opened at 40 Spofford Street, because this means that more traffic will be heading north or trying to head north through that stop sign at the corner of Ranges Road and Spofford Street.
You've had your 3 minutes. So
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just
Sum up.
The only other issue is to install a pedestrian refuge in Spencer Street. And it is recognised that most of these solutions require the cooperation of Mosman Council. And I just hope that given there are now new councillors on both councils, that will be a more conducive environment to deal with these matters. I commend the motion and the proposed amendment to you all.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker?
Yes, I have one.
Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms Clark, for addressing the council. There was a near miss just recently, wasn't there? There's a gentleman that was, I think it was on Spofford Street.
Yes, he was crossing the road and
Yes.
somebody, because the trouble is there's a crossing at the top and the crossing is at the lights and then the other crossing is down near the shops. So he was crossing in the middle of Spofford Street. And he pulled back and fell over and ended up with a broken arm.
I know, it's dreadful.
Yeah,
And so that length that you've just explained, the top of Spofford down to Ranges Road, that's a long stretch of road to have no safety crossing.
that's exactly right. Yes, and it is it's a well-used pedestrian route. Lots of people walk up Spofford Street and swap sides.
And you've got schools and...
I don't see many of the school children.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
mostly the traffic, mothers dropping their children off.
Oh, okay.
That's the trouble.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your participation. That brings us to the next registered speaker, Julia Rankin, who is attending remotely. Ms. Rankin, if you would unmute yourself and give your name and address the council, please. You're still on mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Julia Rankin and I live on the corner of Spofford Street and Spencer Road. So I'll be mainly addressing this intersection. But just going back to the previous speaker, I'm a registered nurse and I attended to that poor man that fell over crossing the road on Spofford Street a few weeks ago. He had a very nasty compound fracture to his humerus. 7 days a week, there is constant noise and congestion in this street. It's much worse during the school term, from school pickup and from 3 p.m. with Tradio Clock, when tradespeople use Spencer as a way to avoid Military Road. Weekends sees constant afternoon traffic, again people coming from the zoo, Clifton Gardens and Balmoral, trying to avoid Military Road. There is an amount of near misses on a daily basis. The sounding of car horns as they try to race across Spofford Street from Spencer makes me brace myself waiting for impact, which has happened on several occasions. As they come across Spofford to the North Sydney side of Spencer, the road dips and is not smooth. There is constant banging of the ute trays, cars scraping and trucks accelerating loudly to get across. There is no so-called traffic calming in place. But however, on the Mossman side of Spencer, there is a meridian strip, nice smooth paving and white road strips, and no noise at all when cars enter there. There is also no pedestrian refuge or crossing between Military Road and past Rangers Avenue. Cars fly down Spofford Street from Military, hence risking those driving across Spofford into Spencer or Holt Avenue. There's also horror for pedestrians trying to cross those roads. Cars are also now cutting the corner of the North Sydney side of Spencer, driving in on the wrong side in an attempt to beat the traffic coming up Spofford Street. This is an accident waiting to happen. In fact, last week when I was coming out of my driveway, I turned left to be met with a car coming on the wrong side of the road. Something needs to be done to address this problem before there is a fatality. I acknowledge that Spofford Street belongs to two councils, but for the safety of the residents, some form of action needs to occur. I also offer any councillor who would like to come and spend some time on my veranda from 3 p.m. Monday to Friday, you're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? No, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
We're now joined also remotely by Mr. Peter Abrahamson. Very much for your participation.
Thank you.
We're now joined also remotely by Ms. Rankin, if you could mute
Oh,
yourself.
sorry.
Thank you.
God, how do I do this? Sorry, I'm not technically advanced here.
There you are. Mr. Abrahamson, if you could introduce yourself and address council.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Peter Abrahamson. Can you hear me?
We can.
Look, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will be presenting along the same theme. I've been living in Spofford Street for just on 2 years, and I'm very concerned there's a tragedy waiting to happen. Spofford Street, as has already been said, is carrying more and more through traffic for around 6:30 in the morning to 7 in the evening. The recent zoning changes will make this issue even more acute. As I say, this is a tragedy waiting to happen. The intersections of Cabramatta, Spencer and Holt Streets are also carrying more traffic, as Julia has just said, and there are regular near misses between cars, trucks and buses while crossing Spofford Street on the way to and from Military Road. I have approached the mayors of Mossman and North Sydney Council and also our local state member Felicity Wilson about this issue. Mossman Council has responded, and reading between the lines, it all seems a bit too hard, And it also seems that Transport for New South Wales has designated Spofford Street as an important artery to take the pressure off Military Road. It's a tragedy waiting to happen. Pedestrians, including children and the elderly, regularly make their way up and down Spofford Street to access the amenities at Cremorne Plaza. They are taking a huge risk when crossing Cabramatta, Spencer and Holt Streets, let alone Spofford. I appeal for consideration to be given to install pedestrian crossings at Cabramatta, Spencer and Holt Streets. Let's try and minimise the risk of a tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. Abrahamson. If you could also mute your connection.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Councillor Keane, do you have a motion?
I'd like to move an amendment, please.
Well, you move a motion.
Yep, I'm moving the motion, but I'm moving the amendment.
But you're adding something.
Yes, I
It's
am.
not an amendment, that's all. Amendment,
Well,
there has
it's
to be a
amending it,
motion.
amending the
Okay.
original motion.
And what is your addition to your
I'd like
motion?
to add to point 5 and that a report be brought back to council within 3 months. Outlining options and actionable solutions to address the issues identified.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by councillor Carr. Councillor Walsh?
I have an amendment.
Yes. If you put your amendment.
Number 1, that council note the multiple invitations over many years to Mosman Council to collaborate with North Sydney Council to address black spot and other traffic pedestrian safety issues at Spofford Street and Rangers Road. Number 2, that council note the works undertaken by North Sydney Council at Holt Avenue and Spofford Street to address the black spot and pedestrian safety in the absence of collaboration from Mosman Council. Number 3, that council once again seek the cooperation of Mosman Council in addressing these traffic issues. And number 4, that the matter be referred to the CEO to consider available options under the local area traffic management action plan.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by councillor Berge. Would you both take on that a report be returned to council within 3 months?
Yep.
Okay, we now go to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have on numerous occasions attempted to engage with Mosman councillors to encourage a collaborative approach to improving Spofford Street. We are all aware of the issues along this stretch. I've seen photographs of several car accidents, some of them very serious. North Sydney Council has already acknowledged that there are opportunities to improve the entire Spofford Street corridor through to Rangers Road. I fully support the idea of our CEO liaising directly with the Mosman General Manager to explore how we can work together on a coordinated plan for these much needed upgrades. I support the amended motion.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers on the amendment? Councillor King.
Thank you. I can't support it because we put forward the motion and we've done that in consultation with our residents who came to us.
Oh, sorry, I must ask you first as the mover if you're prepared to take on that amendment? No. Okay.
No, I'm not. So I'm just speaking to it because the residents do know how I feel about this road. For years, it has been a problem. And it's actually, as all the residents have articulated tonight, that there has been multiple accidents there, both pedestrian and traffic. So I just would like to say, from my point of view, our original motion, which we put forward to the council tonight, is what I'm going to be standing by. I appreciate you've done an amendment. I won't support the amendment, but as long as the residents and in the chamber and who have spoken understand the fact that we are very supportive of getting a solution. We need a solution for Spofford Street, and that's all I'll say.
Thank you. If you could turn off your light.
Are there any other speakers?
Councillor Berge.
Mayor, I will briefly speak. I don't think that anything in this amendment denigrates anything that's in your motion, but what it does do is that it actions it much faster. The issue is with Mosman Council. For years and years and years and years and years and years, we have raised the issue of Spofford Street. And as everyone is acutely aware, it is a shared street between Mosman Council and North Sydney. North Sydney has done pretty much all it can at this point in time and absolutely requires the support of Mosman Council to do any more. As the Mayor may recall, we even had Mosman residents coming here to petition us to help them because their council will not help them. Now, okay, that is difficult, but it really is the role of Mosman Council to represent their residents. And of course, we support their residents. However, we are always open to trying again. We know what the improvements need to be. They've been articulated. We don't need to go back to what we've already done. The issue is Mosman Council, and this amendment by Councillor Welsh notes that the issue is there, and the only way we are going to be moving forward is to seek the cooperation of Mosman Council to address the issues.
Are there any other speakers on the amendment? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Councillor Keane, I'm not supportive of this change. The motion we put forward, it really focuses on the LATAM traffic, the local area traffic management action plan has not been updated since 2018. And therefore, given the major issues with traffic on Spofford Street, we really need to revisit that, and we need to make sure that whatever was proposed previously is still capable of being implemented, provided, of course, Mosman Council agrees with it. The other thing to say is that I think as North Sydney Council, we have an opportunity, or we have a responsibility to our residents to do everything we can to at least fix our side of the road, to try and minimize some of the issues that the residents have raised and the residents are concerned about. And Spofford Street is an absolute mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just very briefly, I think the community's been very clear about what they would like to happen, and I don't really see the issue between the original motion and the amended motion. I think, if anything, the amended motion does a bit more, and I think if we want to see traction on this, I would encourage all councillors to support the amended motion.
Thank you. Are there, before I give the, before I put the amendment, I'm going to shortly speak to it. The fact is that this council has been striving for many, many years, to the point that this council paid for plans for the whole of Spofford Street down to Rangers Road and the shops there. We have put them to Mosman Council repeatedly, to the extent that the CEO and I met with the previous Mayor of Mosman and the GM, and we've written over and over again, even offering to undertake the community consultation on their behalf with Mosman residents, which was rejected. The issue is with Mosman Council. The works on Holt and Spofford were undertaken because there was a black spot identified there. It had, in the original plans, a roundabout. Mosman had said under no circumstances would they fund or be part of those works. And they also have equally issues at the Rangers Road end of the project. It is important that this be sorted out. We do have a new mayor and council and a new general manager at Mosman, and it's incumbent on us to keep trying. And it's also incumbent on us to to roll out those things under the local area traffic management plans. Of course, we are incredibly constrained as to what we can deliver. We have at the moment $500,000 budget for the whole of the local area traffic management plans applying to the whole of this local government area. So financial sustainability is going to be a keystone of us being able to deliver anything alone. Of course, there are always Transport for New South Wales grants, but ideally they will go to the two councils. So I support the amendment, and I'm now going to put it. All those in favour of the amendment and those against, and the amendment is carried. The amendment becomes the motion. Do you wish to speak to it, or shall I put it?
Put it.
I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour and those against, and that is carried. There will be a report coming back again in 3 months' time. That brings us to the final brought forward item, which is notice of motion 3, Buy Down Cottages. There are 6 registered speakers. The first is Glenn Courier, the co-chair of Neutral Precinct. If you would please come forward. And address the council, please.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name's Glenn Courier. I'm co-chair of Neutral Precinct. I'm here on behalf of the precinct, and we had fairly short notice, so I'm also here on behalf of a petition we did, which we've sent to all of you. It's over, I think, 315 or 320 at the moment. We've also had a fair bit of interest from other groups in here. Mossman Collective has done an article on the Buy Down terraces. We've also had the Sydney Morning Herald call and have some interest because they saw the petition as well. So there's been a substantial amount of interest about Buy Down terraces. Now, many of you would be familiar with that because you would have seen it before. It was on the Military Road Corridor Planning Study and was put there by a council officer. The councillors on the last council came down at a site meeting and were very brave in removing it, because they could see the heritage value and saved it at that time. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for that. So that has happened in the past, and we were all grateful at that stage. Unfortunately, that's not long term. For those who don't know where it is, it's in Buy Down Street. It's a row of 6 homogeneous terraces. It's a few steps off Military Road. They're all single level dwellings. They're from an old neutral bay, from a different time, a gentler time, when the buildings were of a human scale, not like is planned for the site. Now, this group of 6 homogeneous, and they're all the same colour as we speak at the moment, they're all an extremely nice group of terraces, is slated to be replaced by an 8-storey building with 3 stories of underground parking. I won't speak much about the DA because that's not relevant to an interim heritage order, but the reality is the developer here has done the minimum possible, and it's a very low merit DA. Olive Lane, which is the lane which is going to have the exit, is 3 metres wide at its narrowest section, 4.7 metres wide at the widest. There is 4 car spots there for the residents and the shopkeepers of Neutral Bay. They are going to have their car park, 3 stories of car park, exit onto that lane. We all know a car can't do a right-hand turn in 2 metres, so they're going to ask us to give up those spots, at least 3, possibly 4, to be able to actually exit this 8-storey building. That's a big ask to destroy heritage dwellings. Now, I've read the council's report. I understand, and that looks like it was written by someone who's under pressure with the low and mid-rise housing issues we've got at the moment. The whole area is under a lot of pressure. And they were very correct about saying they were very busy. They're so busy having to deal with these new applications, there's no time to deal with the old. But that's pretty sad if that's the position we're in. We can't just forget the old at all. So in the reality of that, my suggestion is put the interim heritage order on. There's one less DA to deal with, which seems pretty simple, but we'll see whether it goes that way. North Sydney Council's been fantastic in saving whole streets up in Crow's Nest. They've been absolutely great. We all can't remember Blues Point, but what happened there was slated for 17,000 every single terrace going. luckily, a brave council, brave residents stopped that. And that's really what I'd like to happen here. I've got to be honest about this, and there's much better spots in Neutral Bay, the island between Military Road and Falcon Street, Merlin Street up against the freeway. There's much better sites than 6 terraces to be taken here. What I'm going to do,
It's your 3 minutes, so if you could summarise.
I'll be very straightforward what I'm going to say, and really straightforward. Please be known as the council who saves these 6 terraces, not as the one which demolishes them. Be brave, save them. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. The next registered speaker is Kathy Peters. If you would please come forward.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Kathy Peters and I'm a resident of Yeo Street in Neutral Bay. Tonight I'd like to make 3 brief points. First, the need to stay alert and act to secure our heritage. Second, the heritage significance of the Bydown Street cottages. And third, the need for an independent study on the site. I understand the council faces difficult financial decisions and that the state government can revoke council's delegation to place an IHO at any time. I also understand that the final decision on heritage listings rests with the state and the government is pushing all councils to increase housing supply. But these pressures should not stop us from protecting what matters. The push for development does not preclude heritage protection. In fact, the Heritage Act makes it a legislative objective. And as the National Trust said in May 2024, in response to the state government's push for more housing, working with heritage is one of the most sustainable and prudent ways to ensure a continuing variety of housing types in New South Wales. Heritage is not a barrier to housing supply. It should be part of the solution. We know that council has had mixed success in securing heritage listings, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. The Bydown Street cottages, built in 1905, are a rare example of Federation-era workers' housing unique to the Military Road corridor. Once they are gone, they cannot be replaced. Beyond their architecture, they hold deep social connections. Their builder, a Mr. Harpham, was a respected community member, involved in founding the Middle Harbour Yacht Club and building for T.W. Hodson and Sons Architects, with T.W. Hodson himself, a North Sydney alderman and 3-time mayor, and Frank Hodson, the other director, the Grand Masonic Architect of New South Wales. Since the removal of Site 4 from the Military Road corridor study in which the Bydown cottages sit, as the previous speaker mentioned, the community has continued to ask for action. Instead, council has relied on a developer-funded Urbis report claiming the cottages have little significance, while we understand another report by NBRS Architects has not been made public. This alone shows why we need independent heritage advice free from developer influence. Fiona Gracie, founder of the Cremorne Conservation Group, told me today that this particular decision could be a watershed moment for heritage preservation in the LGA. Let's not have that happen. Councillors, we cannot retrofit history. Please support this motion and commission an urgent independent heritage assessment of the Bydown Street cottages before they are lost forever. With your permission, I would like to table a petition signed by 33 local residents. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. I'll move from the chair a procedural motion that we accept the petition. Is there a seconder? Seconded by councillor Keane. I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. Just wait, are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you very much. And the next registered speaker is Elaine Collins. If you would please come forward. And address the council. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine Collins and I'm a local resident in Phillip Street, Neutral Bay. Thank you to the Mayor and councillors who responded to my email today on this topic. I read the council report, noting that it doesn't think the heritage aspect is strong enough, which is very disappointing. I'm hoping you will be investigating this more deeply with an independent study, resulting in you finding that it is important to preserve these 6 small historical bar-down street houses. Neutral Bay is a lovely suburb. I have lived here since 1987, almost 40 years. It has a wonderful culture, it is friendly, and people walk everywhere, often greeting each other because we all know each other. This beautiful aspect can be so quickly decimated when houses are replaced with impersonal unit blocks. So we have to be very measured in doing this. If these 6 small historical Barnum Street houses are replaced with an 8-storey unit block, we have to remember this is opposite Neutral Bay Primary School. Both my children went there. So 8 stories of a unit block would overlook a beautiful heritage-listed school building and playground, whereas the school simply has the unsightly view of the unit block. The unit block residents will be able to watch from above the school children playing in the playground. I just feel that's somewhat unnerving. I know it probably happens everywhere, but I think we should use this opportunity to try to prevent it. And philosophically, I think it's wrong to keep replacing small houses with unit blocks, as there needs to be a variety of housing, which I think a previous speaker spoke of. Otherwise, in Sydney, we will have either McMansions, where homeowners have renovated with 0 capital gains tax, or unit blocks where developers have profited and nothing in between. I think it's important to retain our history, even if the interim heritage report is of the view it's not worth preserving. And this location opposite a primary school makes it, I think, a special case. Hopefully we can preserve these. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the speaker? No, thank you very much. That brings us to the next registered speaker, Mr. Michael McAlary. I hope I have your name properly pronounced. Give your name and address the council.
My name is Michael McAlary. I'm from Hay Street, Neutral Bay. I was born 67 years ago and I grew up in North Sydney Council area. In fact, I went to North Sydney Dem. And in fact, 50 years ago, practically to this day, I was in here on a similar matter where people were trying to redevelop. I have seen significant change in this area in the 67 years I've been alive. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And I'll just draw your attention. If you look at Wollstonecraft, I remember when I was here 50 years ago, there was a similar situation occurring where houses, not the same type, but were exactly in a row, and it was before council, and they're gone, right? And some of the previous speakers spoke about losing the amenity, losing the history of the suburb. Wollstonecraft used to be a very pretty suburb, and don't think it was all for rich people. Yes, there were some very nice houses, but there was a lot of little sort of cottages, and in fact, there's housing commission as well, still there today. So it was a real mix. But what is it today? It's just a bunch of apartments, right? No character, none whatsoever. It's lost its heritage. And Neutral Bay, if you pull this down, and with what's going on the freeway, you're going to lose more heritage, and you lose the amenity. And as Ms. Collins spoke before me, she said it's a great suburb for people to walk around in. So that's all I really want to say. I just wanted to thank you, and I just wanted to give you some history to think about because it really is important. Over to you.
Have you got any questions of the speaker? No, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
participation. The next registered speaker is Michiko Disalon, convener of Harrison Bennett and a member of the Cremorne Conservation Group. Mrs.
Oh, I have to sort of bend down.
You give your name and speak into the
My name's Michiko Disolon. I'm here as a resident and a member of the Cremorne Conservation Group and the precinct community. I'd like to ask you all to support the previous speakers and the many people who have signed the petition asking for an IHO to be put in place. Whilst I acknowledge that currently there are challenges from the New South Wales government and that the council's purse strings are being closely held, I feel it's a poor argument that due to these factors that we cannot engage in actions to preserve heritage. According to the New South Wales Environment website, there are 2 active IHOs in place currently in New South Wales, and they are both in Sydney, and one is in our neighbouring LGA at 106 Sydney Street, North Willoughby. As the previous speakers have mentioned, the National Trust has stated that heritage is not a barrier to the supply of new housing and should in fact be part of the solution. It was also mentioned that it's a sustainable and a prudent way to ensure there's a variety of housing types. That was by the National Trust. To demolish a 100-year-old building, if you maintain that, it'd probably be there for 200 or 300 years as we have in Europe and in other countries. The buy-down cottages have a form and scale with many common features. They are single-storey front verandas with decorative features, and they are symmetrical in appearance. These features are also found in several of the dwellings directly opposite. So together, this group makes Buy-down Street a unique, rare streetscape. As previous speakers have stated, council already holds a lot of historical information about the early occupants and the builders, who were Frank and Arthur Harpen. Further research has just found that the Harpens worked in joint ventures with other builders and traded as Harpen and Forsyth and or Harpen and Hodgson. Harper and Hodgson worked with an architect called E.R. Orchard. Orchard is on the Stanton Heritage Centre for his significant contribution to architecture within the North Sydney LGA. So they just weren't just your average, Joe Blow builders. A local heritage listing can be satisfied if there's evidence that there is a strong association with the personal persons, and that information contributes to the understanding of the area's cultural history. Already at this early stage, the buy-down cottages have yielded so much significant information. There is no doubt that much more can be uncovered. An IHO will allow professional independent assessment to be undertaken. Can I at this also remind us that the historic buildings in the Rocks were once under threat, but they were saved by a man called Jack Mundy. The QVB was another building that was once threatened, as were the terraces of Paddington. They were all saved because certain people had the foresight to speak up and call for action. Lastly, let's not forget Ted Mack. Ted Mack, as many of you know, was known as the godfather of North Sydney. He became involved with local council and later became the mayor for a long time after a 17-storey office block was erected next door to his house. Ted Mack instigated North Sydney's first heritage study and conservation plans. I'm sure that if Ted Mack was still alive, he would be supporting this motion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you very much. Councillor Keane, do you wish to move your motion?
One more speaker.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one more speaker online. Mr. Philip North. If you could unmute and introduce yourself and address council, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Philip North, I'm the heritage or a heritage consultant for the applicant. So as we've already heard, this motion relates to the group of 6 fairly modest single-storey Federation cottages just to the south of the Military Road commercial strip. They are not currently heritage listed, and the only statutory heritage association that they have is their loose proximate relationship to the Neutral Bay Fire Station and the Neutral Bay Public School, both of which are local heritage items and pretty good ones. But there's no direct visual connection or close association with those heritage items. As council staff have already noted, these are a group of Federation cottages built around 1908. As workers' cottages, they are relatively unremarkable, and they're a building type already strongly represented in the local government area. They're a standard typology, they're not rare, and they're not particularly aesthetically or architecturally remarkable, albeit that they're quite charming. Although their original 3-dimensional external form is largely intact, they've been substantially altered over time. And I would argue that this has served to irretrievably diminish their heritage significance. In particular, the roofs, which typically in a Federation cottage would likely be Marseille pattern terracotta tiles, these roofs have been replaced over time with ColourBond roofs. One of the other significant characteristics of Federation era buildings is their unpainted face brick external walls, as opposed to Victorian terraces, which were generally rendered and painted. However, in this case, these walls have since been rendered and painted over, which is considered very unsympathetic for Federation building. The interiors, which aren't generally visible, but which I've become familiar with, would have been originally architecturally very simple, given that they're workers' cottages. Even so, whatever was interesting about the interiors has since been largely gutted, and almost all properties have completely modernised rear wings. Generally, only the front 2 rooms retain their original form, and even then, much of the original detail has been stripped away or replaced with new kitchens, new bathrooms, new ceilings, new flooring, new trim, and the like. So internally, there's almost nothing left.
Mr. North, that's your 3 minutes. If you would please summarise, sum up.
So finally, the unsympathetic high front fences really obscure any significant contributional character that they currently have. So in my view, these cottages do not meet threshold for listing under the New South Wales Heritage Guidelines. So I would suggest that Council doesn't endorse the motion. As an alternative to listing, however, I would suggest a comprehensive archival recording prior to any demolition, including photographs and measured drawings, and finally with a very detailed heritage interpretation strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Spenceley.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Wolf, I just wasn't clear. You're employed by the developer to opine on the status of these cottages, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I was engaged to prepare a heritage impact statement in relation to the impact of the development on the heritage items in the vicinity of the site.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keane, do you wish to move the motion? Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Beregi.
Madam Mayor, I have an amendment.
Yes.
And that is, the council seek urgent independent advice on whether an interim heritage order can be supported for the group of dwellings located at 2737 Bydown Street, Neutral Bay.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Antonini.
Thank
you. Speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to thank the speakers, with which I wholeheartedly agree, and those who have known me over the council. I have always supported council investigating heritage. It is a public interest to see whether there is heritage which can be supported, but I can't support then further going on to a heritage conservation area. That would lend no weight to the argument that we are we are wanting to position the council, and we need the information. Like everyone, I'm horrified at the current planning straight that the government's going down. It is one size fits all. It is absolutely soulless. It has absolutely no respect for amenity, for what exists, for not just heritage, but culture, for the way we want to live our lives. And it's one size fits all from Newcastle to Wollongong. Unfortunately, however, it's a unity ticket between both the Liberal Party and the Labor Party. There seems to be absolutely no objection from any of the opposition either. So the only people that people can turn to is their local council, and that's what we are here for. Therefore, I'm happy to move that we receive an urgent independent report on whether the council can support an interim heritage order. I would say we have to tread very, very carefully here. The minister has made his views very, very, very clear. And as it says in our papers, our ability to issue an IHO can be revoked at any time. I think we're already under the watchful eye of the minister. There is not a greater voice for reason in planning at the moment than our mayor, who is constantly out there trying to get the state government and the planning minister to listen, that we can still have housing, we can still have increased housing, and we can do it well. It is ironic that often the minister refers to North Sydney as doing density well, and yet he just wants to run, these proposals allow everything to just get run over. I agree that you can have heritage and density, and what is really unfortunate when these proposals come up is that what it's replaced with is not affordable, is not in keeping with the area, and it actually puts a lot of people out of housing during the time that the demolition goes up as well, not to mention the conflict for everybody under who is affected by it. So I'm happy to move that we seek urgent independent advice, after which the council can determine whether there is grounds to seek an IHO.
Will the mover of the motion and the seconder take on the amendment?
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay, so the amendment is the motion. And do you wish to, Councillor Carr, you wish to speak to it? If you could unmute, please.
I would like to add to the amendment something along the lines of that that the DA assessment does not proceed until such time
No,
as...
that's an unlawful motion. We cannot, as a council, there is a statutory provisions around the development application, and we can't interfere with that as an elected body. There are timeframes that we have to meet. So that I can't take that on.
Okay. My concern is that by the time we get the independent advice, is that the DA is going to continue going through the process. And so timing is of the essence.
Do you wish to do you wish to speak further to the motion, or is that you've concluded?
Well, no, that's
okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
I don't know. Oh, there it is. And I meant that reluctantly because we have done a lot of consultation around this motion, and I would love to have actually put forward our motion and had all your support for the existing motion, but I don't want to see this fall over. So I will, because I feel very strongly about Bydown Street and the area that we live in, that we have to preserve our heritage. So I will support this because I don't want to see this just fail. And I want to make sure that the 350 people who have online and hard copy expressed their concern is actually honoured. So I'd like to thank the speakers as well. I'd like to see Neutral Bay preserved. I think there is a balance between heritage and density, and I don't think we need to go and demolish 6 cottages, which do have history. They were, from memory, the train drivers, the tram drivers, and that's going. We're losing that. I know that the council historian has done a lot of work in the background about the historical value of these cottages. So we need to preserve them. We need to keep our history. We need to make sure everyone knows our stories. If we just demolish and build 8 stories, we're going to lose all of that. So I urge everyone to support this to make sure that we actually preserve our area. Thank you.
Thank you. There, Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I visited the cottages over the weekend. I knew the area, but I decided to take a proper look. Before being elected to council, I helped on campaigns to achieve state heritage listing for the Cremorne Orpheum Cinema and had some success in helping to save a number of unique workers' cottages in Parraween Street, while the campaign for heritage homes in Holt Avenue were not so lucky. Having been involved with a number of heritage campaigns before, I can say that as North Sydney faces even more state government initiatives, the low to mid-rise housing policy that most of our speakers mentioned, amongst others, it's only becoming more costly, time-consuming and difficult for council and communities to defend heritage. To make the case adequately, examples of heritage must have a proven track record, backing from specialist heritage reports, and even when all the stars align, it often means that items like heritage facades are retained instead of adaptive reuse or sympathetic preservation or renovation. A poorer council is also a weaker one in situations like this. It affects our ability to initiate important studies like an LGA-wide heritage review. An up-to-date study of this kind would make assessment and response to these type of occurrences somewhat easier and cheaper to resource long-term. Being proactive is always preferable to the alternative. But yet again, it's money which determines how swiftly and strongly we can react. Defunding a council means you mute its response in campaigns such as these. Time is also a factor. The notice and consultation periods around planning become ever shorter, while community campaigns take time to mobilise. They also require continued effort and management with multiple submissions at multiple stages. Leaders of such community campaigns need a direct and continued connection with owners to facilitate access and to coordinate. The location of these particular cottages so close to Military Road and the Beeline bus stop means it will take significant community action to outweigh the state government's low to mid-rise housing policy. This is exactly why they created it, to increase housing stock and density close to transport. So I support the amendment or motion, whichever it is now. We need as much surety on each example's chance of success. And like everything this council assesses, we need to weigh the financial cost with the likely outcomes. So to this end, further advice is absolutely essential, and I support this amended motion.
Councillor Spenceley.
Sorry, man, my camera fall over then. Thank you. This is just like Groundhog Day. You know, I would say almost that we had the exact same speeches from independent providers of heritage advice that's been paid for by the developers, telling us there was no merit in any of the cottages in Parraween Street, that they were not particularly good examples of their kind. There were better examples out there. And it just seems, again, that developer paid for reports tend to end up, funnily enough, backing the interests of the developer. We need independent advice. We need to protect our heritage, as we've done. I'm quite proud to have been involved in the Parraween Street cottages as well. And I think that this is just another example of where council needs to take a proactive stance, get the advice, and then hopefully we will find that there's some heritage value in these cottages. I don't purport to believe the fact that because they're not the best examples of their case, that they should not be kept. That leads to a single conclusion, that you'll only ever have one or two examples, the best examples of a type of housing, you will lose heritage character and feel, and will end up with a uniform, 8 stories of apartments across our LGA wherever possible. I really support this motion. I hope that council resources internally will back a full independent review of the heritage aspects of these cottages, and we will be able to take further action from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Are there any other speakers? Sorry, Councillor Santa. If you would unmute.
Thank you, Mayor. I must preface what I'm about to say with the I admit the fact that I am not an expert on heritage properties, but I will say that my wife and I visit one of those properties regularly, happens to be our chiropractor. We go there on a regular basis, and I really must take issue with the claim made by Mr. North that these properties have been drastically, or they've been greatly amended. The properties there in that street have kept their heritage character, in my view, as a layman, in this matter. They've kept their heritage value. They're charming cottages. They represent the values, the architectural values of the era, and they must be preserved. And that's both internally as well as externally. Having been inside one of them, I can say that they have preserved those heritage values, and I strongly support this motion.
Good to know you're paying attention when your chiropractor's there, Councillor Santa.
Just while we're there, would you like to declare an interest well, genuinely, it sounds like a non-significant, non-pecuniary, but I think you ought to have the opportunity, as you weren't here when I called for disclosures of interest.
Yes, I do declare a non-pecuniary interest, the fact that our chiropractor is in one of those cottages.
Thank you, Councillor Santa. Are there any other speakers? There's no right of reply because nobody has spoken against the motion. I might speak briefly though before we put it. The power to issue an interim heritage order comes from what I think is one of the great legacies of a government past, a government that was led by Neville Wran. He introduced that Act in 1977, and the reason that the Heritage Act was introduced was in response to unchecked rapacious development that had ravaged the Sydney region, but also the state in the 60s and 70s. And the power to issue an interim heritage order was only very recently in the scheme of the life of the Act put there, and certainly the delegation to councils, in my view, has always been a very precarious and fragile thing. In fact, I find it amazing that in the current so-called housing reforms that the state government has yet to revoke the delegation to councils. No doubt there will be a test case, and we may well be it. Certainly one of the things that why are these cottages at risk? And the reason these cottages are at risk is because of the state government low to mid-rise housing reforms. As Councillor Beregi said, it was a one-size-fits-all massive upzoning applied between Newcastle and Wollongong and everywhere in between. And we are starting to now see the true impacts of that appalling piece of policy. And where we're seeing it is street by street by street. The low to mid-rise makes the interim heritage order delegation even more important than it ever has been. I will just say that the reason that I'm supporting the motion, and not that we suddenly address a heritage conservation area in this place, is that heritage conservation areas have lost all of their value, really. The low to mid-rise overrides them, and the only protection is a heritage listing. And that's why we're in this position where it must be explored. Council tonight can't make an interim heritage order. We would be easily challenged because the only advice we have currently before us from expert advice is from internal council officers, both of whom have heritage qualifications, but both of whom have concluded preliminarily that there is that we haven't met the threshold for listing. But that has never stopped me and it has never stopped this council. It is very much worth exploring and we must seek independent heritage advice, as we have when it came to Hayes Street, as we did when it came to Yeo Street, as we did with Parraween Street, and certainly as we did with Selwyn Street. And we have had mixed results. Not always does it come back with advice that allows us to exercise that delegation, but I think we will cross that bridge when we come to it. In the meantime, it is important that we seek that urgent independent heritage advice consistent with what we have always done. As for the funding of it, well, if it is up to $10,000, that's in the public interest. That is really what we're here to promote. It is just terrible that for other reasons, it comes at an enormous opportunity cost because it's 10,000 that in this current council we are having to measure against a barrier for a seawall or a heritage advice for something that is as urgent and important to our community as this. So it is more important than ever that we find financial sustainability for this council so that we can continue to do what we're meant to be doing, which is supporting the public interest. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion. And I now put it to you, councillors, all those in favour and those against, and that is carried unanimously. That takes us back. Bring me to order. That takes us back to the rest of the agenda. Is there a procedural motion? Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unless anyone would like to speak to items, I propose we move the following items on global. Item 9.1, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee Minutes. Item 10.2, Disclosure of Pecuniary Interest by Councillors and Designated Persons. 10.3, the amendment to the council meeting schedule. 10.4, the draft electric vehicle charging on public land policy post-exhibition. 10.5, the preparation of a master plan for Blues Point foreshore. 10.6, the NESROC tender 2027 for road servicing, patching and associated works. 10.7, the new lease on 11 Ernest Place, Crow's Nest. And 10.8, the new lease on 56 Alfred Street, Milsons Point.
Are there anyone who wishes to speak to any of those items? If not, could I have a seconder for the procedural motion? Councillor Welsh, put the procedural motion. All those in favour? And those against, and that is carried unanimously. That means that all of the recommendations associated with each of those reports has been adopted by council. Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a motion of urgency, which I would seek your consideration of, and I've sent it into, there we go. And the reason for the urgency is that it's to submit motions to the local government for consideration at the local government conference, and this is the last meeting that it can be done by. The next meeting will be after the cut-off date.
I rule that to be a matter of urgency, and I put that to the council that due to the time constraints of submitting the motions, it is a matter of urgency. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Holding. All those in favour? And that is carried. Councillor Beregi, if you would put your matter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the council submit the following motions for consideration at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference being held in November. The first one is to ask the Local Government New South Wales create a new category of awards recognising innovation and creativity in the delivery of access and inclusion initiatives and programs in local government. I've briefly provided a background. For everyone would be aware that we have an Access and Inclusion Committee and all councils have a DIAP, a Disability Inclusion Action Plan. And as this is all fairly recent, it would be really great to both celebrate what other councils are doing, but also learn from what other councils are doing, so that we don't all reinvent the wheel. I personally find it really quite enlightening when you go to the awards nights to hear what other councils are doing and then bringing back that information that we can then adapt to our requirements. So the background really is just to say that, that a new category of awards is created, and it recognises this area, which is an important area, and how councils are innovating and creating ways to ensure that their local government areas are accessible and inclusive. The second motion is on affordable and social housing. And it's that local government New South Wales lobby the state government to cease selling off land where it could be redeveloped for affordable and social housing and or community infrastructure. 2, that local government New South Wales lobby the state government to expand the low cost accommodation provision to include all of Greater Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong. And 3, that local government New South Wales lobby the state government to include the provision of key worker housing as part of any redevelopment or new development, all state-owned infrastructure such as schools and hospitals, by allowing additional height for affordable accommodation. I'm happy to briefly speak.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Antonini.
Just briefly speaking to those initiatives, can you just go back to the actual, well, I'll speak because I can't. So the first one is, we all know that the government is selling off land. We're never going to be able to purchase that again. We know that they're selling off land beside Royal North Shore. They're selling off overstation development. And really that is the perfect place for affordable and social housing. We paid for it so that the metro could be delivered, and actually the communities should seek the benefit of such. The second one is to expand the low cost accommodation provision to include all of Greater Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but there is a provision that if a property owner offers low cost accommodation and their property is within 5 kilometres of the GPO, they are entitled to some land tax exemption. There is no reason, given that Sydney is, and this is from ages ago, but to be within 5 kilometres of Sydney, there's a housing crisis throughout Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong, and we know that there are property owners who do not have their properties rented out for numerous reasons. One is that it can be, complicated to have tenants, but 2 is that but one thing that they do is that they pay land tax on them. Now, if you gave them an incentive to actually provide low cost accommodation and not pay land tax, then we may be able to immediately flesh out accommodation that is currently vacant. And the Mayor will recall that in a previous council, we actually did a study along with Lane Cove through Councillor Flood and identified that there was many buildings and many residences in our area that are just unoccupied and sitting unoccupied that could be used for social and affordable housing. And if we could in some way incentivise property owners to lease out their properties, even whilst they're land banking, that would then be some kind of urgent, meeting the urgency of the housing crisis. And the third one is that when the state government is actually redeveloping its own sites, be it for a school or a hospital, that consideration is given to incorporating on top of it affordable housing. Now, that used to be the case on hospitals where nurses would live upstairs. In fact, it was the case with teachers that there would often be affordable housing up to, above schools. And there's no reason that when a school is redeveloped or built, that that key worker accommodation is accommodated as well. It's obviously going to be in a very easy position as schools are located very centrally. And this too would help to address the issue of housing, the housing crisis that we have. The real issue is that the government is looking for some big ticket item to address the housing crisis, which we do have, but that's going to take years and the dislocation is huge. And we have numerous buildings that are purpose ready for tenants, but there is no incentivisation. And also when the government redevelops its own sites, it too should be, it too should have to provide affordable accommodation for key workers.
Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. Unanimously, that brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you all for your participation this evening. Until the next time.